I do have a connection with Mayo, but I come from County Meath, but I live in West Cork. But I do have a very strong Mayo connection, as my mother comes from Achill, just outside Achill, just off Achill Island, Pulrani. And so I always feel a very strong connection with Mayo, and I'm always delighted to come here and exhibit and feel part of the county in some way. I live in a very, very wild and remote place on the Beara Peninsula in West Cork. And and oddly enough, kind of, I won't say ironically, but I'm a very abstract painter. I regard myself as a very abstract painter, non-figurative, non-observational sort of a painter. But I have sort of developed a connection with the landscape, but I've very strong notions about how I relate to the landscape and how I work with the landscape, insofar as I don't go into the landscape and respond to it. I don't look at a landscape and find inspiration particularly, but I work from a very, very blank place. I always regard it as an empty place and build paintings and allow the landscape come in, and that's been a sort of an ongoing kind of relationship I have, and it's a sort of on-off thing. It's like if the landscape insists too much, I push it back. So it's a little bit of a dance between a very abstract sensibility and a very formal, very, very formal sort of sensibility, and the notion of allowing my environment seep in. So the pieces I have here, I think, sort of illustrate that, you know. I want an image that is very, very self-contained, that has its own internal dynamic, but invariably that internal dynamic has echoes and resonances in my experience world. So it's that, I love that sort of connection, that way of connecting, rather than the other way around. I regard it as, quite simply, it's a directional thing where I, like a lot of artists, abstract from. They observe and they abstract from. I do the opposite. I don't observe, I build from nothing, and I work towards a sense of the experienced world. I'm not breaking it down, I'm actually moving up towards and finding it and stopping at a certain point where I kind of straddle two worlds.